Welcome to the D&D Fitness Radio podcast, brought to you by your hosts Don Saladino from New York City and Derek Hansen from Vancouver, Canada.
Gentlemen,
Coach,
how are you
Coach.
all?
How are you, brother? Sorry, guys.
We
I'm
got
trying to get my headphones.
what's going on, and do we got rock climbing up in the back here?
yeah, that was for my kids when they were unruly. So I put that up there. Now they're too big, so they can just hold on.
I love
Derek,
it.
you know what's funny? Derek and I have done 120 episodes together. I think I don't even know if I've ever noticed that.
It's pretty incredible. I'll tell you what. This was our house in college. We were huge into rock climbing, and so we went and we got plywood and covered a whole bunch of these walls and the stairwell and all this, and then we put a bunch of the holds in there, and yeah, that's
a lot of work.
sweet.
It's not easy.
It's a lot of work. It is. It's a lot of work, and the truth is, but the cool thing is about it is you could create a problem, a boulder problem, and then you could just change it instantly with one little hold. It automatically can amplify it 10 times what it was. So it's a pretty cool deal, though.
Yeah.
So it's good to connect. I'm Don Saladino. This is Derek Hansen. And so where are you located out of?
I'm out of Indiana. So I'm out of Indiana, IU, Director of Athletic Performance here in Bloomington, Indiana. So it's a pretty sweet little place.
How long you been there for?
17 years.
Okay.
Came out. So my story, and we could talk a little bit more in depth in a little bit, but story started off Northeast Pennsylvania as like the football guy, and I went to Penn State, and then that's kind of what opened me up into getting into athletic performance or strength and conditioning. And then from there, man, I just fell in love with it and found myself out in Indiana. And really just the fact is, I don't feel like I've ever worked a day in my life because it's just this incredible environment. It's an incredible job and just impacting people. It's one of the purest ways I feel like it to make someone just grow and get better and really come to terms with the fact that you can do anything because we get to control so many variables and so many decision-making ideas that, they don't think they could do this and this. And with a little bit of effort, a little bit of encouragement from us, it just shows them. And when you get them to see the progress, God, it's incredible. I don't care if you're an athlete or if you're a CEO, it doesn't matter. When you can get in that weight room and deal with this, so good.
So when did you said 17 years ago, were you always somewhat athletic? Was it something that, at what point did you realize? I never like to use the word calling, right? Because it's like, all right, well, are we curing cancer here? But at the end of the day, I really feel like what we do is, we're changing lives, and you're putting people in it's like that 1 hour a day or that 90 minutes a day or whatever your sessions are set up as, you are really setting people up for success physically and mentally. So when did you really feel like this was what you were put on earth to be doing?
So I went, so out of high school, I had to go to a junior college first. Even if I go even before that, when I was in high school, I was the, 6'2", 165-pound guy, had a great high school strength coach that kind of showed me a couple different things of how, this is I've heard this story a million different times, but this is my story as well. Show me what a little bit of strength training does, not only for the physical improvement, but our overall ability to create force, to run fast, to jump high, to play our respected sport that we love. And so I took that idea and then I loved it as an athlete. And as I grew, went to junior college, got exposed to another strength coach who was at West Virginia, taught me a little bit about the profession. And then I transferred up to Penn State. And when I transferred to Penn State, that's when I got the opportunity to be at the big time in the college weight room, which was cool, but I still didn't have the intention. I just thought, I'm gonna get a bunch of guys strong. This worked for me. Hopefully it'll work for some others. And it was when I was able to actually sit there with that first group, and I still remember the two guys. I took them through their workout, and I not only took them through that workout and physically helped them get better, but the feedback they gave me, the idea that every one of them, they didn't want to continue to keep moving forward. And with the words that I had or the energy that I gave them, all of a sudden they pushed through that. They pushed through a barrier that they didn't think was possible. When that happened, the switch, it flipped to me, because it wasn't about let's get to a big university, let's just hit weights in the weight room. This was all about performance, and it was getting people to do things that they didn't think were possible. And when I found out the power of that for me, I was addicted. It just hit me so well, because it was something that came so natural, and I loved every bit of that interaction that we had when we were out there coaching those athletes.
Yeah, so it's not just like I guess a lot of strength coaches, they all gravitate towards like the football piece, right? It's like, I want to be a football strength coach, I want to be at Div 1 school, I want to maybe go to the NFL. But it sounds like it's not just about that sport, it's about the process and you transforming people. And I guess my question is, why didn't you stick with football?
Yeah, you nailed it. It's the process. It doesn't matter who's in front of me. I don't care if it's an NFL football player or a high school golfer. It doesn't matter. It's that the attraction of this field, of this profession, is about the people. I just love people. I love to see people do things they didn't think were possible and move forward in some kind of way, in some kind of growth. This world is interesting because I was in football for a large majority of it. And it would have been about 10 years ago now, we had a football coaching change. And that was the first time in my life that I didn't get asked to move on to the next coach. The next coach told me, well, you're not good enough to be with me, which was like, wow, it's a humbling feeling. And it was a feeling that, I didn't have before, but it was such a great growth feeling, great growth opportunity, because when that happened, it made me really look at, hey, there's something there that I didn't connect with that guy with, which, we could agree to disagree on what he said, but the reality was there was something there. And so I really deep dove into who I was. But in that quest of really figuring out the best me, I still realize that it doesn't matter who's in front of me. It doesn't matter what athlete. It doesn't matter what sport. It doesn't matter who it is. It's still the love of those kids, and it's the love of the people that allow me to do this profession. So when that happened, I just kind of went with it and rolled with it and started training soccer, start training basketballs, and start training all these other. And then I got into the world of doing a lot more personal training. I had a little personal training business on the side, which I never did in my life, and I didn't know if I'd like, but it still came down to people, and seeing people grow is the connection. So I've had opportunities to get back into football, but the opportunities have still been great with what is going on here. And I just never took the opportunity to get back into that field.
It's funny, it's interesting. I've literally adapted the saying where every time in life I felt like I was being rejected, I was really being redirected to something better, right? And it really is. It's really a lot of truth to that line. And when people ask me what's my favorite quote, it's definitely that, because there's been so many times in my life where, listen, it doesn't feel good to go through what you went through. I went through that back in 1999. And regardless the message, and I believe that if this coach delivered that message to you, the way that you're putting it right now, I don't think it was delivered in the right way. Someone can argue with me as much as you want to argue. I remember when I was working at a big box gym, it got taken over. Like a big box chain, well-known chain, got taken over by this corporate entity. And it was amazing because you just saw this immediate transition, which at the time, 21 years old, they're not doing this right. But you understand why they did things now the way that they did things. But I'll never forget this GM coming in, and she looked at all of us and went, first words out of her mouth, 45 coaches sitting in this gym, "You're all expendable." That's exactly how she delivered it. And I'm sitting there going, holy shit. And I'm sitting there next to Annette Lang and Paul Frediani and very established coaches who were more seasoned and probably 20 years older than I was at the time. And we're all making a face. She was absolutely right. Now, do I think it was correct in how she delivered it? Like, she's right. We were all expendable. Like, would I deliver it that way? No, I would still want to do that to this day. So I understand what he was getting at, because he wants to come in with his people. I just feel like a lot of people in a professional situation, just because they're good in one area, like he might have been a great coach, doesn't mean he knows how to communicate with people in the right way. And it's wild to me how someone could be potentially very good in one area, but just so bad in the other area, right? I mean,
oh, it's so true. We all have our strengths and weaknesses, and I think the strongest that we could ever be is understanding that we all have our strengths and weaknesses. I mean, that's if we have our own emotional intelligence, have our own way to self-reflect, the best people, the best coaches, the best CEOs, the best athletes are able to sit back and go, hey, I'm not going to be, this is my intention. This is how I need to get it done. This is where I want to go. But I know that maybe the message, I know that I don't know this and this, but this is the objective. This is the goal. We need to go here. They put the people around them that can maybe deliver something better, maybe see their blind spots. I mean, it's all about having that team around them, but you can't have a good team around you if you got the ego that says, I know it all. I could do all of this. And, you know, in athletics, I mean, we have it's no secret. It's a very ego-driven world. I mean, there's a lot of that's happening, but the very best have the humility to the fact to say, hey, listen, I'm a great athlete, but I don't know how to get my vertical better. I don't know how to get myself stronger. How can you help me? Hey, I don't do this good. Can I have somebody to put myself in place? And when you have that, man, first of all, you want to be around it. Second of all, you'll be able to follow that success and those coattails. Because it's funny, I have friends that work with Nick Saban, and Nick is very confident in himself. He's a very, as he should be, but he also is at the fact that he will bring in people that do things that he doesn't do real well. And there's a level of humility that has to come with that to say, hey, as a person that's done this, and this professionally, is on the upper echelon of everything that could be accomplished, I've done it. Well, I've done it because I've had the great people around me. I've had the great people to be able to talk the certain ways that I need to be. That's what great successes come from.
So you're in a director position, Tom, and how do you do that? How do you find good people? How do you develop them? I know you have some interns that you work with, and I've seen obviously what you do on your social media, on your Instagram. So I understand how you kind of work and get people involved, but what are some of the key things you're looking for from people who work for you?
Yeah, I want personality. I want someone to come in and love humans. Like the X's and O's that we all do they're a necessity. You know, we need to be great technicians. We need to be great programmers. We need to be able to do that. But I am not the smartest person in the world by no means. The X's and O's could be put together with some real good, strong education, and with just some time and learning. But being able to present those X's and O's, being able to get buy-in from our athletes, being able to have our coaches genuinely love the person that they're training and doing it for those reasons, that's my number one thing. Is I want people that are going to come into our situation, and even if they do lack on a couple areas of X's and O's, they know that they can connect with those athletes or people themselves. And I think the first thing you got to do is you got to find out, do you really love these athletes, or do you want to just wear a logo? Do you want to be able to say I worked with the NFL? Why are you here? What's your why? Why are you continuing to drive? Now, I've been doing, like I said, this is 17 years of doing this, and we've hired a heck of a lot of people. We have had a great staff, and we've had a great retention within this staff. And I can say confidently that maybe 80% of them all share those same common ideas. They're here because they just want to get someone better. You could put them with football, you could put them with basketball, or you could put them with tennis and golf, which nothing against them. They're just a lower tier, less visual sport, and they will do the same. They will show up at 5:30 in the morning. They'll stay until 8 o'clock at night. It's about the kid. It's about making sure that athlete is going to have the best experience. And if you do that, you win 90% of the battles.
Listen, there's a lot of great things that you've said so far, but I definitely think that pretty much shines. It's you can't fake it in this business, right? You you can't, get involved with this. It was when I owned a few clubs in the city, and throughout the hiring process, if someone came into me and they're like, oh, I want to model, or I want to act, or I want to do, like, that's great. But I wanted coaches. I wanted people who are like, no, I want to be in this industry. Maybe I don't want to be doing exactly this in 10 years, but I want to be in this industry. And another really valuable thing that you said, which I think applies to almost anyone in life, is, in a way you're saying, don't be the jack of all trades, right? Like Saban, do you have to have an ego to be at that level? I believe you do. It doesn't make you a bad person. But I also think there's a level of humility when someone recognizes areas that they may need some help in. And I think Nick, where would he, and I don't know him from a hole in the wall, but from what I gathered is his ego is really about winning. Like that's, right. I mean, I'm sure if you told Nick that, he would have to be, 2 inches shorter next year to, win another championship or win another 5 championships, he'd be like, done. Like, I don't care. Like that. Yep. To me, and it sounds like a funny comment there, but I really feel like that's the truth. When you're a part of your hiring process, are there areas, and hope you don't mind me asking this, but are there areas that you feel like that you need to surround yourself with people with where they can assist you in certain things that you might not feel like I recognize what I'm not good at. What are some of the things, if you don't mind, that you've had to surround yourself with people in reference to helping you improve certain areas?
Yeah, I have a ton. So I won't give you all of them, but I'm going to give you a couple. Number one is I'm a dreamer. I love to sit back, visualize I love thinking big, but getting the actual process together, sometimes I lack. I love the vision, but actually putting pen to paper, and not in the form of actually moving forward with it, but how do we move forward with it is something that I definitely lack. And so I bring people in that are a little bit more geared in a way that their attention to detail, they actually could structure stuff. They're very skilled in the fact of, I always say, I show me your notebook. Like, I want to see everybody sits there writing notes. And so when I write notes and they're kind of on an angle, they're all dotted, they're all over. It's just kind of this chaotic thing that kind of goes between lines. But some of the best coaches that really have helped me out, they write perfect right down that line, and it is perfect. It's so well done with such attention to detail. But I find that a lot of their personality lies in that too. Everything that their way of going through, they're still great coaches. They still love, they're compassionate about the people that they train, but they could stop and pause and sit back and go, hey, if we want to get to here, we need to do this, this, and this. And so that's where I lack. I just want to go 100 miles an hour. I need them to sit there and go, great, Tom, but you haven't even done this. And when we do that as a staff of 15 here, we've been able to build weight rooms. We've built weight rooms. We've put in over, we're at we just did a renovation. I think we have now a new $4 million facility of equipment in there. So we've been able to do all these things. But for me, I just want to say, I want the rock walls. I want all these different turf areas. And so they've been able to kind of bring me back into a world that I got to do this, and this first. And a couple of the other things too is seeing the blind spots of when you go. I like to go really fast. I like to move forward. I like to start moving as quick as I can. I think you need some people that are seeing behind you, seeing the perspective, the different blind spots that you might not be catching in the wake of moving forward. And that's another big thing that for me on the hiring process, I want someone that is there to support, to be able to keep helping me move forward, but also being very aware that I may have a ripple that's going behind me, and I need to make sure that I'm taking care of that. Because what I found is that early on in my career, going forward real fast, I goofed up a whole bunch of things along the way. And if I would have had someone to sit there and go, Tom, you got to look back a little bit to make sure you don't goof this up, boy, it would have helped me out. It would have helped me out in the big picture so drastically.
So you've been at IU for 17 years. I worked at a university for 14, and I think I overstayed my welcome by about 5 or 6 years. Is that something where you're just like, hey, this is a great place? Do you have any other aspirations to do something else or move somewhere else? Or tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, that's a wonderful question. And it's kind of this life right now. I'm 43. All right. I'm kind of in this thing where a lot of my friends are all there and they've had multiple jobs at that point and at this point. And I've gotten in my head of trying to, what is the next thing? What's the future? And so what I would say is that up until this point, I've been able to experience a lot of highs and lows of life professionally. I've gone from the assistant coach to literally being able to continually moving forward professionally. But then on the other end, I don't know in my bio if it's on there, but I suffered a spinal cord injury 10 years ago, which completely threw this whole world into a chaos. So it went from being this trajectory of climb. This went climb. And then here's the bottom. It's going to get pulled out from underneath you. And now try and figure out not only how to live, but now try and figure out how to get back into a life that you love, but you got to go about doing it a different way. And so for me, I've been back at work now for 10 years, and I'm extremely full of gratitude for it. But I'm finally back to a point where I'm conducting myself the way that I want to, 100%, wheelchair or not. And so I'm finally hitting the point where, what is the next challenge out there? The great thing is that I've been out speaking and sharing my story, being able to get up in front of people. Right before this, it was awesome. I got to speak to this group out of Pittsburgh, and 300-400 people while they're on a call, and you get to share your story. There's something that relates back to athletics for me about that, the preparation about that, the nerves about getting in front of people, the ability to be on and dialed in. It reminded me of my good old football days. So it's everything kind of coming full circle, and where the future lies. I think if we can impact people in a positive way, that's where you're going to find me. And I think at this point, strength and conditioning, I'm still doing it, but I think I could do it maybe scaled a little bit more, hopefully, God willing. I could do it a little bit more if I could get out and share my story with people and hopefully become even more relatable and motivate them to do some great things.
Well, listen, I mean, it is obviously a powerful story. Derek and I, knew about what happened. It was a mountain biking accident, correct?
Correct, yes.
Yeah. And I think what becomes powerful for people is that, listen, we all look at, everyone looks at their own lives, and everyone's problems are, magnified at different levels, right? Like what you happen, that's a real problem. Sometimes we take things in life that I feel like, aren't the biggest deal, and we make them out to be a big deal, right? And I think that's what's powerful about your message. I think what's most impressive is, you're obviously very well spoken. You obviously have a great resume when it comes to your 17 years of being in the industry, but in a way you've had to rewire yourself a bit over the last decade, right? Or you were thrown into this tragedy, which is what happened, but you wouldn't even know anything happened to you by sitting here and having a conversation right now. I mean, the camera's from your chest up. We have no idea. No one would have any idea. And I think, to me, that's what's impressive. And I think that's what, yes, you're a talented strength coach. Yes, you're well spoken. But I think the fact that you have had to take something that was terrible and spin it, and like you just said, you're in a great place right now, I think that's remarkable. And I think that's what the story is about. Obviously, it wasn't easy getting there. And for a lot of people listening to this that, have issues as well, what did you have to, I'm sorry to bring it up, but what did you have to go through? How did you get yourself back to where you are now mentally?
Yeah, well, first of all, I appreciate all those kind words. I'm humbled by it, and I appreciate that. My story it's a series of highs and lows. It's a series of 4 days after this accident, feeling pretty good, optimistic, positive, and ready to go. I joke with everybody, but I told them, I'm like, I'm going to be a success story. I'm going to appear on Oprah. Like, this is going to be my deal. Like, and then 4 days are there, 5 days, I'm in the bed crying, because you realize that you don't have any independence anymore. You're completely and utterly, everything is taken away. You can't eat by yourself. You can't dress yourself. You can't go to the bathroom by yourself. And that is an incredibly humbling nature, because the vulnerability that you have to show and the ability to lean on other people and to use other people in ways just for survival, not to move forward in life, but just for survival, is incredible. But my journey goes for that first year of trying to gain back. I gained back my independence. I gain back sport. I start racing again. I start getting into hand cycling this time, and not in same as bike racing, but doing it on my hands. And then coming back to work, which happened about a year after. But all of that was on this trajectory, and I was in the fire, just going through a series of highs and lows. But it was still just this newness that was happening. But really, the biggest struggle happened when I get back to work, and I'm back living, I'm back at home, I'm out of rehab, and life has gotten new normal. Well, what ended up happening there was I was comparing myself to before the accident. You know, I was this 6'2", 180-pound guy that I competed in. I mean, not trying to toot my own horn, but I've competed in Ironmans. The Tuesday before the Thursday rec, I benched 315 for 5. You know, I felt good about where I was physically. And now I'm laying here on a good day, being able to bench 95 pounds for 5. Trying to bike 20 miles was an incredible accomplishment. And what happened was, when I got back to this new normal and I'm back here in this environment again, I kept comparing myself to before the accident. And that's when I went through another big low, because I didn't know how to make sense of it. It was this idea of, hey, that part of our lives that part of my life is over. You got to give it up. You got to accept it's gone. Now everything that you have moving forward is the big thing that you're going to continue to build your life up with. So that's what, even in the first question, Derek, that you asked about, being here for that 17 years, I only feel like I've been here really 10 years right now, because when I came back to work, I had to find my voice again. I had to find out who I am again. And I had to figure out how to use the chair, use the way of doing things differently so that I could get the same thing out of those athletes. And it's been a hell of a friggin' journey, because it's as good as it is. When the bottom drops out, the bottom drops out, and it takes everything to surround yourself with having good people around me, having a tight support system, but to always be practicing gratitude and to be able to see these good things in life. It's just kept my spirits high. It's kept me ready and moving forward. And it's been nothing but, it's been challenging. And I get this question all the time, and I don't know if would you take it back? Would you go back before 2012 if you could? And undoubtedly, I would go back to before 2012, because life is much harder right now. But who I am as a person is different. And the growth that's happened here, I don't know if it would have happened the same way as far as if I wouldn't have done this accident, but this maturity and who I am now is substantially different. And I feel really good about it. So I think I answered your question on there.
100%. I mean, physically, yes, you go back, but from an emotional and mental standpoint, that made you into a different person, right? I mean, I think that's something none of us, we can't relate to. I think it's amazing. I mean, a lot of people don't have that type of outlook in what you've done with your career and the path and trajectory. And I'm a pretty good sight of knowing when someone's got it. You've got it. Like, I think you're going to go on and do great things, and it's great to be getting to know you here.
Well, I appreciate it, Don, and I need to be on a call with you every single day, because you're making me feel damn good. I'll tell you that.
Oh, brother. That's what we do, man. That's what life's about, man. It was Derek. It was funny. This is all I tell people. It's, as a coach, the three of us are coaches, and people start trying to get granular. Is it nutrition? Is it training? Guys, this is 100% mental. Like, that's what this is. Like, this is all mindset. And I think that's what I'm really most obsessed with now is how, mindset and the program's the program, as well as I do. And Derek knows there's a smart way to do things, and there could potentially not be a smart way to do things, but there's a million programs out there that work no matter what your training is. But I really think it's, how do we inspire more people to strengthen this a little bit more than this,
Yeah. No, and it's 100% true. You nailed it. And that's what's interesting about even our national conferences. You have all the young strength coaches that come in, and they have all these ideas and the IG accounts that show them all these different exercises, and they're trying to do all. But if you can't make this better, If you can't get that buy-in, man, you're missing the boat as far as what a coach is all about. And that's what's so special, because I call us old timers right now, and I hate to say that, but
Yeah.
but in this field, right, we are. That is the thing that we lean on all the time, is the fact of it's all about the mindset. It's about doing, this is life right up here, and you could train this, but this has got to be able to fuel these. And once you grasp that, boy, you could do anything. It doesn't matter what life happens to you, what happens to you. It's just always going to be able to keep moving forward.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because I think a lot of people in the profession, their identity is around maybe what they can do. Like, oh, I can lift this, or I can, jump and do this. And I think all of us went through that to some degree, where we had to demonstrate, like, hey, I have to get credibility with the athletes and show them that I can do that too, right? But now I'm turning 53 on Sunday. I can't
Happy
do
birthday.
that. Yeah.
That's the real old timer of the group here.
I can't
go.
I cannot do that. All of my kids are faster than me. We got a dog, he's faster than me. And when I run, I feel like I'm moving fast, and then somebody shows me the video and I'm like, that's an old guy running. So I don't have that whatever demonstration credibility. So now you've had to adapt, and you have to coach. You have to get results as a coach. And I see that's something that you've done. And obviously I've done it more in the chronically old guy getting older, but you've had this acute change where you've had to adapt. Can you talk a bit about that?
Yeah, that was abrupt. That was a world so that was me 100%. I wanted to, if we were running the 2-mile test with the soccer team, I wanted to get out and pace them. I wanted to, if we were lifting, I was just going to demonstrate what a clean looked like. I didn't think anything of it, but I also wasn't aware of how poor my words were. I was getting the message across when I was younger by the demonstration, the visual more so than the words, but I didn't know how bad the words were until the visual was removed. And so when I came back to work and I started trying to walk myself through this, coach myself through the verbal side of it, I had a bunch of athletes going, what the hell are you talking about? What are you trying to say? So in that beginning, I went and used every piece of technology as I could find. I pulled up videos of what I wanted. I pulled up all of these different things to be able to say, this is what I wanted. But through that process, I found that my words, cleaning up your words, not speaking so much and kind of condensing them, being able to be efficient with what you're saying, it just was so much more effective than even the best visual. And so that process coming back, again, that's coming back after a year of rehab, coming back to work. There's another rude awakening. Hey, guess what? You aren't nearly as good of a coach when you take away all of the movement, the visual part of it. So I spent that's still an ongoing process, but that first year was so abrupt because it was just this world that I didn't know even existed. I just thought I'll get back and I'll talk my way through this. The other part of it was really interesting. We don't know how, I don't know if you realize, I don't know how loud it gets in the gym down there or in your own personal facilities, but how loud it is in these environments. Like our weight room down here, 25,000 square feet. We've got this big Bose, big ass stereo system. And when it is thumping, it's thumping. We all have that big coaching voice that projects and projects. And that's one thing that I prided myself in. Well, when you damage my injuries at C6, C7, so the diaphragm, to even being in that seated position, you can't project as well. So now I'm working on actually using words, but even when I'm using words, no one's freaking hearing what I'm saying. So it made all of this kind of come together in such a way of, holy shit, like coming back to be a strength coach, it sounded really good. And this is a big objective, but boy, this is going to be way harder. But throughout that time frame and throughout the patience of a lot of our athletes, we were able to kind of get that, because once I was able to get that first tier of athletes to understand what I was trying to say, they then became my demos. And once they were able to demo, even if the other athletes couldn't hear me, as long as the other athletes were watching some of them work through it, it all kind of came together and then start working. But that process was patience on their part, patience on my part, and really deep diving again of self-evaluating, of saying, hey, you're not as good of a coach as you think you are, and you need to work on this and that.
Which is interesting. I mean, that's really interesting to me, because I think as a coach, we all have our ways of delivering a message, right? Like I've never been this yeller screamer. I've been more of a person who will kind of, get in front of you and try and select my words and deliver that message and be like, that's what I'm talking. I'm not like, I'm not talking, et cetera. You've almost had to change the way you coached, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you almost had to turn around and look at something that might've been your strength and recreate to something different. Do you think, maybe you can't answer this, I'm curious. Do you think, obviously you're a better coach because you evolve and you get older. And I believe as you get older and you gain more maturity, yes, you gain knowledge about your craft, but you also, like you said, you're more selective of your words. But do you think you're more of a powerful coach now than you were before, 10, 12 years ago?
I like to think I am. I love it. And it's funny. Somebody asked me this just recently. Do I ever use the chair as this? I can't think of how they worded it, but basically as a no excuse rule. Like, hey, I'm asking you to do this, and then you're telling me you can't, which can't is the worst word in the world to me. So it's always about can't. So you say can't, you could kick my mother in the shins, and I wouldn't be as mad as I would if you say the word can't. But do you ever use the chair as, hey, I've gone through this. There's nothing you can't do. And I got to be honest, I've used that thing of like, you can't do that versa climber, but come on. And I don't try to do it in a way of anything of just trying to get that reaction to say, hey, maybe I can do that. But I found that now when you have to sit back and pause, when you have to deep dive into who you are, no matter if it's a lack of, you can't move, to you can't talk, or if something happens that you have to reinvent yourself. I think any time that we could take that much time to really deep dive into who we are or who we think we are and how we want ourselves to be delivered, I think that you have an incredible amount of growth, period. So if it's from a wheelchair or from an accident, or just the fact that, hey, I've turned 40 and I want to really look at who I am because maybe I have a lot more potential. I think when you sit with yourself for that much and you do that so much self-evaluation, but that so much self-work, man, it's unbelievable what you end up pulling out of there. So I would contribute a lot to the fact that I had to change myself, but I also think that I spent a year of my life in rehab trying to live and figure out how to impact, and then getting the practical experience of I got a year in a high intensity environment with high-end athletes that are kind of dependent on me. My job is dependent on me to get that result. So I've had this great time, this 2 years of figuring out some really tough stuff. And humbly, I say, I think I am a better coach because I do think I can be more relatable to them, still get the same out of them X's and O's wise. But now I've become a little bit more, it's more intimate. It's more of a compassion that they're seeing mutually from us, from me.
Yeah. Tom, it's sort of a two-pronged question, and I'm sure you'll answer this very well, but you've had to, you work as a motivational speaker, you try to bring people up. And the other question I have is, have you worked with people who've had spinal cord injuries and tried to relate? Because I've done some rehab work with people with spinal cord injuries, and I find it, I'm not showing this overtly, but I find it difficult because I can't relate, right? I can't say that I've gone through what you've gone through, but I'm still trying to help and be motivating. How would you handle somebody who's gone through what maybe you've gone through and bring them along and motivate them versus just an average person who needs to be motivated and maybe takes for granted what they have?
I still think the recipe is empathy. I think being able to sit in the space with someone, whatever they're going through, is still the recipe to gain that connection. And so if it's spinal cord injury, or Joe Smith had just been fired from work, or it's all perspective of how heavy that stress, that weight of their is on them. Because I've met people that have suffered spinal cord injuries, and besides seeing them in a chair, you would never know it. I mean, they have a smile on their face, they're ready to go, and maybe there is a deep dive that they're hiding. But then I've met other people that literally they didn't make the soccer field the other day. Coach didn't let them on there, and you would swear the end of the world has happened. And so again, but they're still feeling the suffering of that so much. So I think empathy is so incredibly powerful, because I'm not trying to learn anything about it. I'm just sitting in your space. Hey, how can I help? How can I feel what you're feeling? I'm not going to tell you anything. I'm not going to tell you anything besides just listen to what you're saying to me. When I work with people with spinal cord injuries, I found that them telling me the story of who they were first, to where they're at now, to their fears, to all the different things that they have in their life, to even goals, being able to sit in that and let them just continually talk and talk and talk allows me to figure out a place to kind of just make a connection, sit there and go. For me, it's a lot easier with a spinal cord injury. I could definitely see that. But hey, your goals right now, your fears are in the future. You can't worry about this, especially with a spinal cord injury, because in the beginning, I couldn't squeeze my hands. They literally did this. And then each day they kind of kept moving and getting in there. So the idea of the unknowns is there. But the unknowns of a spinal cord injury, the unknowns of life, it's all the same. It's all the same, but it's understanding we got, as coaches, we as people that are trying to get people better, we got to meet them where they're at. We got to meet them in the place that they're at, because we got to pull them from wherever they're at to be able to get them to move forward. And I do think that is still the recipe. From there, as far as the different things with spinal cord injuries, understanding terminology and in the world, another perfect scenario. When I was a graduate assistant at Penn State, we had a guy named Adam Teleferro. Adam was this incredible, from New Jersey, incredible cornerback that ended up coming in, and we're playing Ohio State, and we're winning, which is awesome because I hate Ohio State, but besides the point. They put Adam in at the end just because, they put him in there. He's going to be a great player for us. So he comes up on a guy, big old 250-pound running back, and he drops his head, puts his head in there, blows apart his C67, exact same injury as I had. So Adam goes down. We're all in shock. We don't know how, it's just amazing, or it's horrible. He goes through rehab, but 9 months later, he runs onto the field. And if you want to pull up a video of Adam running on the field, that's when you got to check out, because you will literally, tears will stream from your face. But during that time, we helped Adam with trying to strength train again, come back and try to be able to do this. He was supposed to walk, and he said he just got caught up in his spirit, and he started running. But we tried to help him back with this. Well, none of us knew what it was like. Everybody's calling him the miracle and all of these great things, but it's so hard to gain perspective with that. But what we did do, we had a physician that told us a couple of the terms that Adam's been associated with for six to 9 months. Use those terms, understand what he is going through, not maybe in the way that you'd ever feel it, but just some of the different terms that you understand how you're going to continue to keep getting them better. I think that was one of the biggest parts that helped me relate to Adam so well, because it was crazy when this happened to me. I have this whole series of coincidences that happened, but this happens to me. I'm in rehab in Indianapolis, and who is speaking about a half hour away, 2 days after the accident? But Adam is coming to the same hospital I'm in, and he's going to do a presentation. So he came in and kind of paid a full circle. But those are the two. But the number one thing is just empathy is so powerful. Empathy is so powerful for all of us to make that initial connection, because once you make that, man, you could have kids, you could have adults, people will do whatever they can because they know, again, you care.
It's a shame that we found out about you this way, because it was through a YouTube video, right? It was through something that I think, doesn't show human nature in its best light, right? But I mean, Derek and I are really happy that we got connected to you. I mean, I didn't want to spend a lot of time on it because I think there's such a more important story to who it is you are as a coach, as a human being, the message you want to portray to people in the future, your future in life and business, I think now is going to become something that, will be catapulted in maybe a different trajectory than it would have been, 10 plus years before that. But Do you mind talking a little bit about what happened with that YouTube video and how something negative seems like it's turning into something positive, because it is shining a light on you in a way that I think is going to expose people to you and what you have to offer?
Yeah. So that video.
Oh, we just lost you.
Oh, how about?
Yep.
Is it now?
I got you.
We're on mute.
Oh, I can hear him.
I can hear.
Good now.
Okay. There we go. So this was, I guess, is it what, 3 years ago now? I think it was. I'm out. I got this great new bike, this mountain bike. As we know, trying to do anything on your arms is not quite as efficient as your legs. And so I got this new bike where I went back to the same place that I went and mountain biked all the time. And this bike so happens to have an electric motor on it. It's a power assist motor. And I was out in the middle of this ride, and these two individuals just decided to just talk about how I wasn't supposed to be there. And the video is pretty startling, because I did come around this corner and there they are, just sitting, waiting. And then they confronted me, and they confronted me in a way that I'm still pretty shocked to this day, because I did let them know that I'm a guy. I'm using adaptive equipment. I'm a guy in a wheelchair just trying to enjoy my day. And the video, it speaks volumes as far as how they handled that, which I think was extremely disrespectful, maybe an understatement, but it was
very combative. I mean, they were very combative. I don't really understand what they were so angry at. Like, it's even, you know, if you're on a normal bike, or I don't really understand. Like, I watched it and I was very turned off. To be honest with you, I watched it once because I was like, it just kind of makes you angry. But what were they angry at? They were angry at that you were taking up extra room. Like, I don't understand. Like, I don't.
So I didn't know this at the time, but I guess there's been an uprise of the power assist bikes, or the e-bikes, they classify them as. And so the e-bikes are basically an electric motor that goes hand in hand with the pedals and allows you to get power. It gives you power assist in there, which basically it's not bad. You know, the 40-year-old dad that wants to get out and ride. Well, now instead of, he only was physically fit to do 10 miles. Well, now he can do 20 and 30 miles and see more nature. The other side of it is, as everything, certain people take those motors and then they jack them up. And then if you jack those motors up, you could make them, you're flying around dirt trails and you're tearing apart trails. So in this case, this man took it upon himself to say, no, there's no electric or power assist motors, e-bikes allowed in the woods there, which I did find they were allowed. So I left that confrontation, came back to my car, and there was a buddy of mine that eventually was coming up the hill, and then we met up at my car. And it was at that point I didn't realize I had the camera on. And at that point I pulled my helmet off and I went, oh shit, I think I've got this whole thing. But when something like this, like something that happens to you, is it as bad as you think it is in your head? Are you exaggerating? And I remember playing it. My wife was around, my wife is
she must have been furious. I was furious. That's why I didn't really watch it again.
Yeah. I mean, my wife she almost jumped through the screen. And so we're watching this and I'm like, wow, this is bad. And so I sat on that thing probably for 2 days because again, I don't know the power of social media, but like I kind of assumed it. Like I never had anything ever go viral. But then I started working with this young kid in our hometown that has cerebral palsy, and he uses a chair, he uses adaptive equipment. He's all of about 6 years old, and him and his dad and I, we have been getting him into all the different sports, like get out in the woods and do all these different things. And I couldn't help but keep thinking about the fact of what if little Eli had to go through this? Like, what if someone confronted him? I mean, at that age, you're so insecure anyway, and you're in this body that you're trying to figure out. And so I thought, you know what, if I could raise a little of awareness, I'm just going to do this. And what do you know? I hit send, and boy, that definitely showed there was a lot of support that ended up happening with that. And again, though, where that went though is awesome, because I still have this ache in my heart for those two people, which is, some people are like, why? Well, I don't know. Like, I hope I mean, I know I feel bad for them to a certain degree, because I just think, they're still human beings, and I just don't. I never want to do any kind of ill will to them. But on the same thing, it raised awareness across this country, because what happened was Colorado reached out, all of Indiana, all the different states, and they're like, no, e-bikes isn't an adapt. This isn't a bike. This is an electric wheelchair that you are fully privy to go on here. Where what I found in Colorado was they weren't allowing this before. So now we're in this thing. We're in the middle of conversations with all the DNRs throughout the country, going, no, this is an adaptive piece of equipment. People should have all rights to it. Indiana, they went and bought a couple of them so that we could actually go and use them all over. So it ended up being this incredible thing to get people out there. And again, at the end of the day, I love the woods. I love to be able to use one of those bikes. And the first day I got it, I remember going out there and rubbing my hand through dirt, just being able to play in dirt and be connected to earth. It's just incredible. And when you don't have it, it's just this really, really it's fulfilling thing to have back.
I also think it's a message, and I'm going to kick it over to Derek. I also think it's a message out there that, our world, we need to not be as reactive, right? And we need to take a deep breath. And whether those two people were really upset in the woods, whether they're angry people, and you're giving them the benefit of the doubt, which I appreciate, right? Still makes me angry, right? But
I usually say those people, their parents didn't love them enough.
Yeah, and we can go down that route. But I think as human beings, because we've all been there. I've never done that, but we've all been there to where things happen, you react, and you're like, oh, maybe I shouldn't have responded to that email that way, or maybe I shouldn't have responded to this person that way. And I really feel like if we can, when shit's going down, I know it's not a good way to put it, but when shit's going down, we got to just step back and we got to take a deep breath and respond and say, all right, what's going on here before I snap and before I go at someone and make myself look like a complete fool, what those two people obviously did. I'm very happy that you've been able to turn that into something I think that's positive. Derek, anything else?
I love my e-bike because I am older and I can just go after the hills and I can go faster and go, I do have range anxiety. And I know there was one video where you got stuck and you had to get towed back. So that was kind of cool. But I just want to ask you, do you get to interact with Coach Aaron Wellman? I know Aaron when he was with the Giants. Yep,
all the time. I just had a meeting with him. 11 o'clock this morning, came from a meeting with him. Love Aaron. We've had a number of different football strength coaches. It speaks on why I'm still not in football. Since I've taken this role, Aaron is our sixth football strength coach in the last 10 years. I don't want to live that lifestyle. I love the little bit more constant. But Aaron is just a phenomenal dude. So he's been in here now since COVID for the past 3 years and 2 years, and he's just been awesome to work with. I mean, bright mind. I don't know if there's a harder working out there. The guy is here at 4 a.m. and you can come back into that weight room. He's there at 8 o'clock at night. I mean, just he cares. He's passionate, and he does anything he can to make those athletes better.
Where can everyone find you? I mean, this story's, I think it's incredible. People are going to want to learn more about your social media handles, your own website. Is there anything you can fill us in on?
Yeah, I just try and keep everything simple and keep it as Tom Morris Performance, and TomMorrisPerformance.com is the website. All of my Instagram, all the other things, TikTok, which I got into. TikTok videos are, that's kind of a fun little road to be dabbling with. So these reels and these TikTok videos are pretty neat. But anything social media wise related, that's it, and that's probably the best bet to get in touch with me. I know that's how it seems to be the easiest.
Well, you just got your newest followers, me. So guys, Tom Morris Performance, Instagram. This is fantastic. We can't thank you enough for coming on today. Would love to connect with you in the future. Definitely have some platforms that we can hopefully introduce you to that would just awesome. Give you the opportunity to tell your story more. So expect a DM from me soon, right?
You bet. I appreciate it. It's so great talking to you all. I appreciate it so much.
Thanks, Derek.
Thanks, Tom. Really appreciate it.